what is the best way to incorporate analysis of pricing elasticity and demand elasticity into the RGM strategies? And also, what methods do you recommend that are useful for calculating them?
When you understand price elasticity, what you're doing is you're getting to one number that seeks to explain the relationship between your consumers and the money you are charging them, right? So when you start by understanding that, then we can drill down deeper into what sort of price elasticities and how to calculate them, how to go about integrating them with RGM, right? So there are price elasticities of your own product. So if you raise the price or decrease the price, how does the market demand change for one product? Then there are cross-elasticities. If I have a portfolio of 5 brands, each of them competing in a different price sector, and I alter the price of one brand, which sort of puts us in an adjacent price sector, one above it or one below it, how does that, how do the price elasticities, or how does the demand change for that product and the other products in my portfolio? This would help you understand cannibalization. This would help you understand the different white spaces, how you can extort them, those sort of things. Price elasticity in RGM is simply the key to understanding how to go about using the lever to revenue for yourself, how to tackle the competition, how to always be one step ahead of them, and how to best align your portfolio to the demands of the market.
Now, we have in these two levers, pricing and promotions, we need to understand when is the best time to have a price increase. And just recently, we have seen several price increases in countries that probably never seen a price increase that often. And also at the same time, we've been promoting to increase that demand. What can you tell me about the differences between price elasticity for pricing and price elasticity for establishing a promotional budget? You know, how different they could be, or it's just a misunderstanding that we talk about two different price elasticities for pricing and for trade promotion, or at the end is the same thing?
So when we generally speak about trade promotions, the objective is to sort of assist the retailers or give incentives to the consumers to buy more of your products from the retail channels. You have to account for the complete value chain of your company, right? So it starts all the way from your company and ends with the end consumer. So when you look at the price elasticities, more often than not, we would be looking at the price elasticity of end consumers. There is always an angle to this, which could potentially form a black box. From the factory, from the manufacturing to the end consumers, there's a supply chain in between. Wholesalers would also have the right to decide which product gets how much shelf space and where is the product placed, right? And from the wholesale to retail, there are two major forms of transmission of product. So one is either the salespersons would take the product from the wholesalers, go out there and drop it in the retail shops, or the retailers would go to the wholesalers and get your product off the shelves, right? So for the wholesalers and for the distributors and all of these middlemen to sort of prefer your product over anything else, that is also fundamentally a concept of price elasticity to some degree, because the market works in a funny way, right? Whatever happens in the end consumption sort of works as a marker for everyone involved in the supply chain. So if the end consumer prefers my product more, it doesn't really matter how tough it is for the wholesaler. It is always in wholesaler's best interest to stock more of that product, because that is going to get off the shelf more. So I personally prefer looking at the price elasticity of end consumer and work under the assumption that the rest of the market operates according to the preferences of those consumers.
There are some markets around the world that their main channel is modern trade. You know, like most of the distribution of a CPG product or fast-moving consumer good product is done in a grocery store or a C-store. There are going to be some other markets like Latin America and some other countries in Asia where the traditional trade has a lot more relevance. Many manufacturers or several manufacturers, they don't want to go above certain price point, and then they decided to start decreasing the content of the products. So one thing is I can build a pricing strategy or promotion strategy based on history that can let me know what's going to be the best pricing or promotion, you know. But when you're moving the packaging, then it's more perception on the consumer, right?
Exactly.
What are the main factors that as an RGM, head of RGM, you should need to take in consideration when deciding, okay, should I go above that specific price point, or should I reduce or manage the content of the product so I can stay in the same price point?
There are multiple work streams that will feed into this sort of a decision. So my personal favorite is a right to price analysis, right? So right to price analysis looks at your competitors versus yours relative share of market, and that would be we would be looking at that on each brand or each SKU level, right? So relative share of market, you would look at the product quality, the difference in product quality, that information can be acquired via surveys, conjoint analysis, those sort of things. Then you would look at brand equity, and obviously we'll look at the difference in prices, right? That sort of analysis will tell you, do you have the leverage over your competition? Do the customers, one, prefer your product, and second, have a genuine reason to prefer your product over your competition? If those things are there, then I believe you can afford to be more creative with your prices. You could even increase the prices in some scenarios. You could just reduce the content. If let's say your product is priced at 502 pounds, so you could just reduce the content, bring it to 499 pounds, right? Something like that. So right to price analysis can really help you understand something like this. Another parameter that, so I've mentioned branding, you would look at product quality. These are the parameters, by the way, the takeaways. Another thing you would look at obviously is your P&L. So every decision that you make, especially in RGM, has to have an impact on the bottom line, right? That really just comes with the role. So you would essentially try to understand what would be the impact on my bottom line should I choose to go this way. And then based off of those parameters, you would create your judgment. You would create a summary that, right, it is in my best interest to lower the content and not exactly reduce the price, because we cannot absorb the shock that will come from that. Or if you think that, okay, I can reduce the cost here, but you would also look at your portfolio as a wider picture, right? So my other brands in the portfolio can absorb that shock. Or over here, my objective is really just to win the market share. So these are the sort of questions that you would be asking. You would sort of merge them together and try to form a judgment.
Now, this judgment is created by answering certain questions, you know, like, okay, how can I maximize my revenue? How can I maximize my profit? How can I maintain my share of market? None of this can be done if you don't have, first of all, the right data stream, like how am I generating the data that will help me eventually create an analysis that could be descriptive, could be predictive, and ideally prescriptive, that can help me build different scenarios that are gonna at the end help me answer these questions, you know.
Exactly.
Now, in your opinion, what are the best historical data sets that can help me answer these questions, build these models, and structure this analysis?
Retail sales is personally my go-to one. So retail sales would ideally have all the information about the consumption, right? So you would be able to tell most of the things. I would dare say about 75 to 80% of the things would be answered if you have a strong retail sales data set. Additionally, you could always go to third-party service providers or create your own surveys for competitive pricing data sets, for brand surveys, for any previous conjoints that have happened in the market, anything like that. So altogether, you essentially need to look at the sales data. You need to look at, obviously there's an angle to it, the financial data sets as well, because you really want to assess the impact of your decisions, right? So there will be financial data sets. And finally, there will be some third-party data sets more into the intangible things like brand equity or product quality, but at least the consumer perception of everything, right? So say if it's a CPG brand, which is sort of if you're manufacturing snacks, then you would look at flavor profiles, those sort of things. So any sort of studies that you could get, because these are the sort of things that really matter when you are going to adjust the prices. Prices is nothing but the value you are charging your customers, and you need to be sure that you are able to exchange that value through your product.
So we talk about retail sales data. This could be POS, like point of sale retail.
Point of sales, yeah.
We have also some third party, like syndicated data or panel data, something like that. And obviously then your financial data, information that is generated by you.
Exactly.
And I think it's a big challenge when we're talking about 3 different data sets with different granularity, with different structure, with different source. And data is like, first we need to harmonize structure and clean those 3 data sets that they can speak the same language.
Exactly.
How relevant is for you, and how do you guys do this in order to then start creating the models that can help you answer those questions?
So in your RGM teams, it's more likely that you speak the retail sales language, but say you've got the financial data set, or you've got some brand or competition reports, right, from Nielsen or Kantar, something like that. Now, you don't really understand it as well as someone who sits on the branding team, or someone who sits in the market research division, right? So I think it's of utmost importance that first these data sets have the right owners. With the right ownership comes the onus of transforming these data sets into insights. If you are running an insight project for decision making, make sure that different teams, the teams that have ownership of each of these data sets are involved. Everyone sums up their insights from their different studies, and then insights are generally the sort of boiled down version, right? They are the takeaways. It's much easier to work with the takeaways and then decide upon a conclusion than having to work from the scratch on a new data set, understanding the context and putting them together into a language. So for insight projects, I feel collaboration is the way. If you're building models, then it's super important that once again you involve the teams, you collaborate, you involve different teams, different owners, and then there are analytical techniques like one hot encoding and those sort of things, where you would take a categorical or a qualitative piece of insight and make it into quantitative, add numbers to it, right? So make it into a Likert scale or things like that. So always make sure that you harmonize the data, preferably into quantitative means, before putting it into model or before starting the process of modeling. So that is also something that's good if you have it on hand. So every time you build a model, you shouldn't just have to sit and try to encode the insights, right? So try to collect insights in a way that it's easier to process, easier to align with your wider work stream.